Hello everyone, it's Jay
Max, hi.
and this is our third year of making a video of what we read last year. So this time, this is about the books we read in 2023, and we've been pretty good this year, and we actually read the same amount of books somehow, which is 42. So altogether there are, well, not 84 books, because we read like 4 of the same books.
So 80 books.
So 80 books altogether. So we're gonna try and run through this quite quickly, but it's gonna be long, so that's a warning of the beginning. I do have my mug of the day, is this R2-D2 Star Wars mug, and yeah, we can start. So do you wanna have the first one? I think you can, because I have 2 books in one later on, so I think you can start.
Okay. So my first book of the 2023 was Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. It's basically an autobiography, and yeah, it was pretty cool book.
Yeah. So I started off strong in 2023, and that is because I finished the Rosewood Chronicles book series, and I've read the last one, which is called Princess Ever After, and I'm not gonna talk about this too much, but if you're interested in this book series, I actually have a video on this channel where I talk about it, and I made a little text, so I'm not gonna go through with this very much in this video, but there's an extra video about Rosewood Chronicles if you're interested.
Yeah, my second book is Abyss by Josef Karika.
So that's a Czech author.
I think he's Slovak. But
okay, Slovak author then.
And basically it's a thriller book, and it was really weird, but in a good way. So
I think I'm gonna turn down the light a bit. Also, you notice we're wearing like matchy hats with these ears. Max's mom crocheted these for us.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to crochet the next one by myself, so wish me luck on that one. But how cute are these? So yeah. My second book of the year is called The Nowhere Girls by Amy Reed, and this is like kind of a young adult book, and as I said, I started strong. This book was so very good. This is like my favorite young adult book that I've read in recent years, probably. I love this.
My third book of the year, and the best one that I read last year, is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. And it's just, look at the cover. That's all I have to say.
It's just very cozy, just
Yeah.
I should read this.
Yeah,
soon.
you should.
So many books though I wanna read. My third book is called A Walk to Remember by Nicholas Sparks. And this was not my cup of tea, but I was like, Nicholas Sparks is such a famous author, and I just wanted to try something by him. And now I can officially say I will probably not read another book by him, but everyone likes something else. So yeah, not a good book for me.
So my fourth book was Felix Ever After by Kason Calendar. And it's basically a young adult book about a trans guy. So yeah.
Also, the cover is so pretty.
Yeah,
look at the side, like the side profile. These pages, like so beautiful. My next book is by Stephen King. Of course, we had to have at least one Stephen King book. Actually, I think I have 3 that I read in 2023, and this one was called Bazaar of Bad Dreams. Not my top favorite Stephen King book, but still good.
So my next book was the next 2. I don't have like physical copy of them, so
we don't have all the physical copies, but most of them.
So my next book was The Walking Dead. That was a comic book, and another one was Zombies versus the Living Dead, and that was another comic book.
Okay, my next book is Doctor Who book, because there had to be at least one. There's only one this year, but last year, but I already read another one this year, and I started another one. So yeah, this one is The Crawling Terror, and it's written by Mike Tucker, and it's just a classic Doctor Who story with the 12th Doctor and Clara Oswald. So yeah, I enjoy that.
My next book was Percy Jackson: The Lightning Thief. I've read this for like third time, I guess.
Oh, here we go with the Percy Jackson books.
But the other ones I read for the first time, so yeah, this one was first.
So my next one is another young adult book, and I haven't read many young adult books last year, but this was one of those that I did, and it's called 5 Feet Apart, and it's by 3 different authors, and I don't know if I'll pronounce them right, but like it's Rachel Lippincott and Mickey Daughtry and Tobias Iaconis. I'm so sorry. I butchered these so badly. Which like I'm sorry, but there's gonna be some French authors, so that's gonna be even worse later on. But yeah, it's a young adult book. It's one of those just typical teenage romance sad-ass books, very The Fault in Our Stars vibe. Although I think I enjoy this more than I did The Fault in Our Stars. But it's that kind of book. It was nicely written though.
My next book, surprise, surprise, was Percy Jackson: The Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan. So I'm not gonna talk about it that much.
That needs a separate video. Maybe one day when I read the series, we can film one together.
Yes.
Or if you don't want to wait, you should start your own YouTube channel, I guess, or podcast or whatever. So my next, not one book, but 2 books, is the Narnia books, and I've finished the last 2. So the first one I read last year was The Silver Chair, and the next one was The Last Battle. And yeah, I finally finished this book series. This is the first time I actually finished the whole thing. So I guess cool. I can I can now say that I've read the whole Narnia, and I think The Last Battle was one of my favorite one. Even though I wonder how I never got the spoiler, but the ending is quite happy but quite tragic as well. So that surprised me with this book because it's more for like children. But yeah, it was pretty cool, and I'm glad I finally finished all of this. This is all the books in one, by the way, so that's why it's so thick.
My next book, surprise, surprise, was Percy Jackson: The Titan's Curse by Rick Riordan. Again, I'm not gonna talk about it that much.
So I am now getting into the 1 book each day for a week challenge that we did. It's also on this channel. It's gonna be in the same playlist, so if you're more interested in that, I basically we both did like 7 books a week. I read the thinner books, and my first one from this challenge was Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and it's this like shortened version, and it's illustrated. It's very pretty. This year I would like to read the normal longer version, but this is the only one that I could have get my hands on at that time. So yeah, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
My next book was Percy Jackson: The Battle of the Labyrinth by Rick Riordan. This one is actually my favorite book of the series, which is weird because most of the fandom doesn't like this book that much. So
yeah,
I don't know.
You're so different. You're crazy, girl. Okay, no. So I'll go through these quite fast because, as I said, this is the 7 books in 7 days challenge. So my next one was Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald, which is a screenplay by an unknown author. Yeah, unknown author. And that's what I'm gonna say for this.
And my next one was Percy Jackson: The Last Olympians, which is the last series of last book of the first series.
Series, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that's it.
So one more book by the unknown author, which is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, but this was the first time I've read this book, even though I've had it for a long time, so I finally read that one, and this is where the author ends in 2023 for me. Okay, so we don't have to talk about that unknown author anymore.
My next book is Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesar. We actually both read this book.
So yeah, I guess my turn. I'll also read this book. It's one of those.
This is actually like a slasher horror kind of thing.
I've actually really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
I think it's very suitable for like summer ending, being excited for autumn, and it's just kind of like very small town set kind of vibe, and then it turns to slasher, but it's very well written, I think. I really enjoyed reading this one.
And it has actually another 2 books, I think. It's like a trilogy, so
we should get those probably, because I enjoyed this one, so like I would be definitely open to read the next one. Oh yeah, and do you want to go on, or should I when I know? Yeah. Okay, so my next book is the dumbest book of the year probably, which is Ghoul Friends Till the End. You know, I like Monster High, so yeah, that was it. No more to say, just fun read.
My next book was The Crime Busters by Angus Hall. It's a really big book actually, and it's the history of FBI, Scotland Yard, and that stuff. It has pictures in it, so yeah, it was a really cool read.
I like how it looks like newspaper style kind of thing.
Yeah,
I like that. So my next one is by Serena Valentino, because I keep forgetting to name the authors actually, so I'm gonna try to remember now. And it was the book How to Be a Zombie, and it was so fun. And my favorite part of this was the playlist that they put in there. There was like a bit rock punky, and it was pretty fun.
My next book was Heroes by Stephen Fry. Stephen Fry.
I was like, fries.
I think you actually can guess what's this about. It's basically about Greek heroes, and yeah, I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, a little Greek nerd. My next one is by Amy Gray, and it's from the same book series as the previous one, and it's How to Be a Vampire. And I've enjoyed this one maybe even a little more, but I'm definitely biased because I like vampires more than I like zombies. Yeah.
So my next book is finally part of the small books in a week. So
yeah, because you started reading way faster than me last year, so.
So the first book of this challenge was The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy by Tim Burton. I think most of you are gonna know what this is about. It's basically like poems with these kind of little illustrations.
And my next one is the last book that I've read for the 7 days a week challenge, which is manga of Sherlock, the BBC Sherlock, and this one is the first one, which is Study in Pink, and of course the authors are Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss, as you might know if you're into that a bit. And I still haven't read the next 2, so maybe this year finally.
My next book in the challenge was Bliss Club by June Pla. It's basically how to have a good sex book, but it has all kinds of illustrations. I don't think I can find some that I can show you. Well, basically I could probably show this. Yeah, you can read this. I'm not gonna read this.
Monsieur Orgasm.
Yeah,
beautiful. My next book is The Danish Girl, which I've read for the first time. The author is called David Ebershoff, I suppose. I'm sorry. And it was very lovely, and it was really interesting and sort of informative, because of course it's based on a true story, but of course it's not completely the same, because it has to have more like drama, I guess, in a book, but it's still pretty interesting and informative, and I enjoy this one.
My next book was The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn.
I think it's pronounced Gillan Flynn.
Gillian Flynn, and it's a like a it's like a 70 pages of a basically ghost story. So yeah, it's a really good
Yeah,
good read.
yeah, she's the author that wrote one of my favorite ever books. I've read Sharp Objects by her, and I've reread this book a few times, and I love this one. So she has very cool writing style. It's like kind of Stephen King vibe with like the extra sparkle of depression, which is apparently something I really enjoy. So yeah. My next book is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. Yeah, is this package, and the only thing I was disappointed by was because my favorite version is the Tim Burton with version with Johnny Depp, of course. So the only thing I missed in this book was the daddy issues. Yeah, but other than that, like cool read, but it's more like a children's tale, I suppose.
Yeah, my next book was Sherlock: The Great Game, again by Steve Moffat and Mark
Geddes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the third in the series.
Yeah. My next one was really good as well. It's by Casey McQuiston, and of course it's Red, White, and Royal Blue, because it's one of the ultimate gay books that you just gotta read. And I really enjoyed this read. It was very well written. There was some drama, but it wasn't like overly sad and depressing. There is definitely some sex scenes in this, but I think they were pretty natural and not too forced, because these two guys were apart for a long time, so it just made sense in those scenarios because they were really excited to see each other after a while, I guess. And yeah, it was a good read. I would recommend this.
So my next two books, again, I don't have the physical copy of them. So the first one was Hands on It, poems that at least try it. I guess it's the name. It's a Czech book. So yeah, and after that, Three Steps into the Dark, and both of them are pretty good. But yeah,
Nothing too extra special, I guess.
Yeah.
So my next one begins an author that I actually became my favorite author in 2023, which is Darcy Coates. And why did she become my favorite author? Because she writes the classic spooky houses horror books. They're like simple, quite a fast read. It's just very well written, and the language is not too hard. So it was just like every time I didn't know what to read, or just wasn't into reading that much at that time, I opened a book by Darcy Coates. This one is called The House Next Door. Completely differently translated to Czech, though. If you see the Czech titles on these books, some of them are so, especially books by her, are so differently translated. So it would be like Mystery of the House of Marwig, which is completely different than just The House Next Door. But this began a big book series that I started last year, and I've been enjoying them very much.
My next book was actually a Goosebumps book, How to Kill a Monster by R.L. Stein. And this was a nice, scary little read. So yeah.
You were saying you read this one as a kid?
Yeah, this one.
It's my book, and we both read it as kids, because Goosebumps are such a good book series, especially when you're a kid and you're getting into horror. It's the great way to start that. My next book is written by Robert Bloch, and it's called Psycho. And do I need to say what this is about? Because I think everyone knows this. And there's a movie based on this book, and it's in black and white, and it's the only black and white movie that I like to watch. So I think that says something. And the book was even better because there's just more to the story. And yeah.
My next book was Ovšem by Karel Kovář, but you could, I think, call it like About Everything, About All, something like that. And it's basically an autobiography about him. It was pretty cool. It's full of like pictures when from his life when he was traveling and stuff. So yeah.
Well, I think I'm gonna read this one at some point as well. So my next book is by a French author. So I'm so sorry in advance. I've actually been studying French for a while now, and I think that makes it even more embarrassing that I have actually no idea how to read this one. So the author is Julem. No, definitely not that. Bailey, I suppose. It's called, in original, is called Ne Sincere. And it's about stories from people who work in the morgues and stuff like that, and make funerals. And I don't know, the French humor is just so weird sometimes, but sometimes it fits you, sometimes it doesn't. And I love the cover of this book. So it was just random stories from this era of job, I guess, and it was very fun to read. So if you're interested in, I don't know, death, then then I would say, yeah, you can go and read this one.
My next book was actually another Percy Jackson book, and it's the Lost Hero, again by Rick Riordan. It's the first book of the second series, and yeah, it was pretty good, but I like the second one better. But I'm gonna talk about it later.
So yeah, my next book is by author that you probably don't know, who is J.R.R. Tolkien, and I've read The Hobbit, and it was quite a slow read actually. It was good, but it was kind of slower read than I expected. But I've heard that he tends to like describe the nature and the overall vibe a lot, so it actually takes a bit, but it was still good. I would recommend to read this like early like spring, maybe when, or like maybe early like
Autumn.
no, like early April when the trees start to blossom. This is a very good like spring vibes read, and it's fun. And this year I'm planning to read the Lord of the Rings for the first time. So, or at least the first book out of the series. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, The Hobbit.
My next book is Sex Education: The Road Trip by Katie Burchell. It's actually based on the Netflix TV show, and it was actually pretty good. It was like a funny little read. It wasn't something like serious, but yeah, it was funny. So
Probably gonna read that one at some point as well.
it's also a pretty quick read.
Yeah. My next book is by Jill Stark, and this is one of the very few self-help books that I've read in my whole life. I'm not really a fan of these, but this one is called When You're Not Okay, and I quite enjoy this actually, surprisingly. It was pretty like reasonable advice and like quite realistic outlook on life when you're a bit, disordered in the head. So surprisingly, I quite enjoyed this one.
My next book was actually one of the biggest book on Book Talk in like this in the last year, I think, and it's the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I was worried if I'm gonna enjoy this one, but I actually enjoyed it a lot. It was a really good book, so yeah, I recommend this one.
So you mean to say the hype was reasonable? Like
Yeah,
it was
I think
very
so,
good.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. My next book is by Darcy Coates, and this one is called The Falcroft Ghosts, which is quite a good translation in Czech as well. And it's just one of these, another one of these books. I didn't like this one as much as I did the previous one, but I still very much enjoyed it, with that being said. So yeah.
My next book is another book we both read last year.
Yeah, I have it here. I think I read it right after you finished this book.
And it's Coraline by Neil Gaiman. And I really love the movie, so this was like it was. I like that.
And my next book is Coraline. Who would have guessed? I love this cover. I love this read, and I love that it's described as a fairy tale for children and horror for adults. And I think there's something about that that like is pretty fitting.
So my next book was The Son of Neptune by Rick Riordan, another Percy Jackson book. Surprise, surprise. And this one is actually the last one that I've read this year, like out of the Percy Jackson books. Another one I'm gonna read in this January, I hope. But yeah, this is my favorite one out of the two of this series.
My next book is by Stephen King, and it's called A Bag of Bones. And this actually was one of my favorite Stephen King books. It's pretty thick boy. It's over 600 pages, probably the thickest book I've read last year. And I just love the story about it. It's a long read. I mean, you might be a faster reader than I am. I'm not a very fast reader. So it took me a while, but I enjoyed this, and it was very much worth it in the end. And just how the way the story unravels and all the mystery, and yeah, I've loved this one.
My next book is Psychology of Serial Killers by Andrei Drobolov. It's actually a really big book. It's like 500 pages, and it has a really small like writing, but yeah, I really enjoy this one.
My next book is very silly again. Maybe it's because I needed something silly after reading a Stephen King book, probably. And it's by Lacey Harrison, and it's the Monster High book, the first ever Monster High book. And this is so much better than the Ghoul Friends. It's still freaking silly, of course, but I've enjoyed this embarrassingly a lot. So yeah.
My next book is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and it's probably one of my favorite books of the last year. So yeah, I really recommend this one. It's pretty
gay. So my next book is by Ellen Bradley, and in English it's called The Weed That Strings the Hangman's Back, which is very differently translated into Czech as Murder is Not a Game. And it's basically out of a book series about this 11-year-old girl. She looks like Wednesday Addams on the cover, by the way. Her name is Flavie de Luce, and it's basically this little girl always just solving some murder cases, because of course. And haven't enjoyed this one as much, not gonna lie. We have one more book from this series, and I'm still not sure if I'll get to reading it or not. Maybe I'll just sell this book at some point, unless you want to read it.
No.
And yeah, it was not all bad.
So my next book is actually a philosophy book, and it's a first and second book about existentialism. So yeah, I don't know what to say about this one, because it was kind of like,
Did it put you into existential crisis?
No, but it put me into boredom. So
yeah. Oh, that's even worse. My next book is by Agatha Christie, and it's Death on the Nile. Everyone probably knows this book. It's one of the cases of Hercule Poirot, and yeah, I've enjoyed this book a lot. I think I've only read 3 at this point, and by Agatha Christie. And this was probably my least favorite one, but it was still very good. Not particular reason, maybe I just don't like books that are in the heat and shit, because I just get overheated just by reading that atmosphere. But yeah, it was still very good.
So my next book was Josef Fritzl, The Monster from Amstetten by Alan Hall, and it's a book basically about this guy, which was a really creepy dude, and I'm not gonna talk more about it because it's really upsetting. But it's weird to say it was a good read, but it was well written.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of book. My next book um, is by Gerald Brittle. And as you may remember, in 2022, I read the book Demonologist, which is about Ed and Lorraine Warren. And this is basically the next book. So it's The Demonologist, but this one is called Devil in Connecticut. And if you've seen the Conjuring movies, the third one is what this book is about, but it's more into death, of course, because it's a book. And yeah, it's one of the like slower reads, but it's quite creepy and still enjoyable, I guess.
My next book is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry, and I actually really enjoyed this one. I'm probably gonna reread this year again because it's such a cozy read and it has a beautiful cover if you can see it.
Yeah,
Kinda.
looks so cozy.
Yeah.
It's like probably a really good like autumn cozy read, right?
I think I've read it like in summer, but yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
I should read it in
Definitely.
the autumn. My next book is by J.P. Ahonen, and it's called Beelzebub. And
We both read this.
And we both read this. This is a like a graphic novel, and these is sort of what the illustrations
It's
look
about
like.
a metalhead family.
It's about a metalhead family, and they're just making fun of this whole thing,
Yeah.
and it's just pretty fun, fast read. That's all to say about it, I think.
My next book was The Dark Between Stars by Atticus. It's actually a book and like with poems, and he made fun of me because of this.
Yeah, because this book arrived, and we were opening it, me and his mom, and we read some of the parts and we were making fun of that.
Yeah.
Because I am not a poem kind of guy.
I actually didn't really enjoy this one that much.
See?
See?
It's not even good. My next book is by Darcy Coates, and it's called The Carrow Hunt. And yeah, that was really good. I think this and the next one coming were my absolute favorites.
My other book was I've Been Always Here, I guess, by Philip Edelbach. Yeah, it's supposed to look like a mirror, so yeah, that's really cool. And I actually have this signed by him, which is pretty cool. And it was my favorite non-fiction this year.
My next book is by Stephen King. Why am I so obvious?
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, by Stephen King, and it's called The Gerald's Game. And I watched this movie, and ever since I thought, and the movie was pretty good, if you ask me. But ever since I watched the movie, I was like, I bet the book is really good, and I read it, and it was pretty damn good. And I just love Stephen King's description of people slipping slowly into insanity. It's just my favorite thing that he does. So yeah, I love this book.
So my next book was Goodbye, My Rose Garden. It's by Dr. Pepperco. I don't think it's his real name, but sure. And it's a manga. It's out of it's the first one of the trilogy, and we both read this one, and we both are pretty sure
my next book is this one.
And we both are pretty sure that we need the another two books from the trilogy.
It's very very pretty. It's like old
Historical,
England, countryside.
It's queer
with a Japanese character, very queer, very melancholic as well. Yeah. It's very beautifully written and illustrated, so I'm happy about this one. My next book is by Anton de Saint-Exupéry, and it's the Le Petit Prince. I actually got this book as a gift last year, and what I love about it is that it's like one of the mirrored books. So one side is Czech and the other side is in French. Because as I said, as I said, I've been studying French. Sadly, as this is the best I can do with studying French, but I've only read the side in Czech. I borrowed this to my sister. She was able to read the French side too. She's better than I am in French. She has French at school. I'm learning on Duolingo, so that's what it is. But hopefully soon I'll be able to read this one in French as well. And what's interesting about The Little Prince is that I've actually read this book 3 times in my life now, and once it was as a kid, second time it was as a teenager, and now the third time it was reading it as an adult. And I just seeing things so differently after like reading it every fucking 10 years of my life. So maybe the next time I'll read it, it'll be in my 30s, and hopefully it'll be in the French. But yeah, I still like this book. I just like that it's criticizing adults. Although The Little Prince is quite annoying, if you ask me, which is also making me feel like an old grumpy adult, which I guess I am, but still enjoy this. So yeah.
My next book was We Are Okay by Nina Lacour. I think it's pronounced this way. And it's this book. And I actually don't remember this book. It was kind of cozy, then it got depressed, but I don't know what happened in the book. So yeah.
Yeah, I've had a couple of books like this, and it's like I could not remember the first Stephen King book, what it was about. Yeah, my next book is the probably first and last book by a Czech author I've read last year. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And it's RUR, or in Czech RUR. It's by Karel Čapek. It's a classic. It's like sci-fi drama kind of thing, and it should be pretty famous worldwide. And if you didn't know, an interesting fact: the author's brother Josef actually made the word robot for this book. So yeah, robot actually comes from the Czech language, and the first time it was used was in this book. So it's pretty cool. It was, of course, like you can tell the book is older now, but it was still pretty good.
Yeah. My next book was The Traitor God by Cameron Johnston, and it's this fantasy book, and it was really good. It was like a pretty dark fantasy, but with a really dark black humor and stuff. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, my next book is by Darcy Coates, and it's The Craven Manor, and I've loved this one so much. As I said, the previous one and this one were the freaking best.
My next book was actually another Percy Jackson book. I didn't realize I read that much. So yeah, it's the Demigod Files. It's really like a thin book, and it's basically these like short stories, and like there's a.
Is it about the characters from the Percy Jackson series, like the first 5 books, or is it overall the characters from?
No, it's from the first 4 books. It came out before the last Olympia.
Oh no, I have an extra book. I just don't have it here. So my next book was by a French author, Guy de Maupassant, I suppose, and in original it's called Boule de Suif, which is like ball of Swift in English. In Czech it's just called Kulička, which means ball, and it's just one short story. It's like 51 pages long. I've read this for school, but it was surprisingly an interesting read, especially it was just 51 pages, so the whole thing was actually interesting, and it's really sad, and I think it reflects the society even at these times for being this old. So I think it was actually surprisingly a good read. Yeah.
My next book was The Iliad by Homer, and I've actually read this one in Czech like 5 years ago, and this time I thought that I'm gonna read it in English. It was a mistake.
Was it very hard English?
Yeah, it was very hard
What
English.
I think is shocking me about this book, sorry for sounding very old, but the letters are tiny. It's tiny. I was like, maybe I'm gonna read this one as well, and I just open it and I can't see
It
shit.
was
I can't see
pretty
shit.
hard English and old English, but yeah, I've got through it like in a month. Yeah, it was a book I read for the longest time, I think.
I'm not surprised. Also, it must be.
But-
I know it's not that many pages, but it's like so
Well,
many
it's-
letters, right?
It's around 424 pages.
But letters are so tiny.
Yeah, they are.
That would taken me a year to
But
read this
yeah,
one.
it was a good read, and in the same edition, I have the Odyssey in English as well.
So planning to read that this year,
I hope.
or are you not brave enough for
Well,
that?
I'm wanna read it in English, but I'm not sure if it's gonna be this year or the next year. So yeah.
My next book is by Nicholas Knight, and it's Supernatural, the official campaign season 1. So if you know the show Supernatural, we have the first 2. I've only read the first one so far. So did you, I think?
No, I read both.
Yeah, you read both. Okay, so I've only read this one so far, and it's just like very nostalgic, especially since this is about the first season, and there's a bunch of interesting facts. There's a bunch of interesting facts about the show and how they were filming it, and how the fans were reflecting it, and how
playlists are there.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I love this one. Very nostalgic, reminding me of when I first watched the first season of Supernatural, which is a million years ago. So if you love the show, the books are so good, but I think they're so easy to get. We got these like second hand.
Yeah, second hand for like €2, both of them. Completely.
That's really good.
Yeah,
That was
I
freaking
think-
luck. But the
I
sad
think the
part is now I
girl-
want all of them.
yeah. I think the girl just wanted to get rid of them.
Definitely. How can you get to the point of your life when you want to get rid of Supernatural books?
My last 2 books, I actually don't have the physical copy.
And one of them is the same as well.
Yeah, it's both of them are by Kay O'Neill, and it's the Tea Dragon Society and the Tea Dragon Festival.
And I have read the Tea Dragon Festival. Well, technically, I've read actually the Tea Dragon Society. I didn't even write it here, but it's fine. I just realized that was a reread for me, so I've read both last year. And there are like graphic novels about tea dragons.
It's really just
It's
cute.
adorable.
Yeah.
It's so cozy. It's such a lovely concept
And
overall.
I want them home now.
Yeah, I want them too, but we would have to order them from abroad because you can't even get them here.
Well, you can in Mega Books, I think.
In Mega Books, yeah. But in English. Or
Yeah.
were they not even translated?
No.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay. So we need to get those because they're so cozy, and there's actually more of them, and I think I'm speaking for both of us
Yeah.
when I say we want them all.
By the way, look at my shirt.
Okay, I have a new one, so we need to wait. And it's got these.
And
Yeah.
I have like flowers on the back.
I have nothing on the back, but look at this. It's like embroidered. Okay, I have one more book left. I just realized. So this one is also by like
It's a French book.
bunch of French authors that I'm not gonna name, and it's called Un mort par jour, which is like a death per day. And
It was a gift for me.
It was
I
not
think.
like necessarily my last book that I've read, but because you read out of it every day, there's like basically short story about death every day,
Yeah.
and it was very bizarre. As I said, like French with their humor and about death. Like the last book that I've mentioned, I like that one French book about death. This one very weird. Also,
Again, it was for like €2, so
yeah, so I'm gonna actually give this to my sister because she also studies French, so she's probably gonna be able to read this better than I was, but still, there's just, it's about a bunch of people that I've never heard of, like famous French people, and yeah, The illustrations are very cursed.
This one's pretty cursed.
Yeah. So you get the memo. But this was also written for the year like of 2010, I
Yeah.
think. So it also shows its age. But I guess some of these were a bit funny. The book has a pretty nice cover, but it was freaking weird.
And that's all.
That's all. We've been filming for over 48 minutes, so this is gonna be fun to edit. And I hope you enjoyed, and feel free to leave a like or comment, tell us we are beautiful.
And tell us what your favorite book was last year.
Favorite top 3 books.
Yeah.
Because I hate answering questions like this. Maybe top 5 books. It's very hard for me to say the best book. So yeah, without further ado, till the next time, bye.
Bye.